Now, as part of the vision of our state, of course, is to continue to increase housing supply, to make sure we do everything to support people getting into homes. We've announced and introduced a range of initiatives, whether it be new shared equity homes through Keystart, buying Fraser Suites, changing Keystart to support, in particular in regional WA and across the state, more modular being available through the Keystart loan product. And of course, we've also gone out to the market for a major new advanced manufacturing facility. This facility will be a major addition to how we deliver homes across the state. But also, as part of our vision that we took at the election, we also committed to a housing innovation fund, and that is supporting companies like this, or companies who are bringing in new technology and innovation into increasing our housing supply. We know that we have to do everything to support building our homes quicker and more efficiently, and also cheaper. And so this is about supporting our builders around the state, about supporting them initially through grants, and also in the second stage through no interest loans, supporting builders through a competitive grants process to invest in capital that can then help them get the technology, get the equipment in to build homes and to support housing supply. So this is a fund that will be administered through Minister for Manufacturing, Minister Sanderson, and this is a fund, as I said, about supporting more local manufacturing, but in particular supporting the construction of homes quicker and being just another way of supporting building more homes in Western Australia. And now I'll throw to Minister Sanderson.
Thanks, Deputy Premier. The Premier's vision for Western Australia is to remain the strongest economy in the nation and to be the best place in the world to get a quality job. And everyone deserves a place that they can call home. Today we're taking another step to deliver on that vision, and we're fulfilling an important election promise, which is part of our Made in WA plan, which is to launch the first stage of the $50 million Housing Innovation Fund. As the Deputy Premier has outlined, the first stage of that fund is a $50 million. The first stage of that fund is a competitive program of individual grants of up to $5 million, with a 50% co-contribution from companies that are successful, to support WA businesses to innovate, to develop modern construction methods, to look at prefabricated, modular, automated building technologies, robotics. We need to improve innovation and productivity in the way that we're delivering housing across Western Australia. The second stage, which will be introduced next year, involves low-interest loans, and that's again up to $5 million for grants and loans to support innovation, to invest in equipment and invest in skills and skills development for their workforce to be able to innovate and implement new and innovative home building techniques, as we've seen in this fantastic site today. The EOI for an advanced manufacturing facility has already gone out and was announced by the Deputy Premier and the Minister for Housing. This complements that program, which will also enable existing builders to be able to innovate and improve productivity around the housing that they deliver. Importantly, I'm also going to be issuing directions to their 3 energy GTEs, covering Western Power, Horizon Power and Synergy, and these directions will also help to drive local content procurement and the use of local businesses to support the delivery of all of the infrastructure that we're going to need for the energy transition. It's about diversifying our economy, strengthening our supply chains, and importantly, backing local businesses and local jobs. It's part of our Made in WA plan to make more things here and to secure sustainable jobs into the future. I'm happy to take questions on this issue, and then we'll go to the DP.
Is there any danger that the push for innovation and to build faster will reduce quality?
Oh, look, I think we have some of the highest building standards in the world. We have a really rigorous regulatory framework, and people generally have a high quality product, no matter what kind of product they get in Western Australia.
Prices are going up. The average mortgage in WA up $75,000, biggest increase in the country. Are we losing the race to increase supply fast enough to keep up with growing demand?
Well, I think the housing supply is a challenge around the country. It's true that Western Australia is a great place to live and work, and that's why more and more people are choosing to move to Western Australia to work in our health system, to work in our schools, to work in our construction sector, but they do need a place to live, and that's why the government is doing everything it can to release land, providing different products through Key Start, as the Deputy Premier has outlined, to encourage companies to innovate and be productive and increase that productivity level in how we can deliver our housing supply.
Are we in danger of hitting that point where young West Aussies can't afford to crack the housing market without the bank of mum and dad?
Well, look, everyone who's got children wants their children to be able to own their own home eventually. It's something that this government is very focused on, making sure that you have a good job and you can own your own home. And that's why we're doing everything we can to support West Australians with a range of cost of living measures, but importantly, delivering more stock so that there's more availability, keeping downward pressure on rental prices, and making sure that we have good products like the Key Start product, like being applicable to modular homes, will give people more choices and more options going into the future. We've done more than any government, the history of any government, in terms of providing options and optionality for families and individuals when they want to buy their first home.
Do you think West Australians are ready to consider accommodation like this when it's been double brick for 3, 4, 5, 6 decades?
Look, the tide is definitely turning on double brick. We're seeing a significant increase in those new modes of construction. Of course, people do love their double brick, but brick veneer is becoming very, very popular and uses a much, much less number of bricks. And of course, the workforce and skill requirement is quite different. So yes, people just want a really good quality home. I mean, these are robust, high quality homes that can be delivered in a fraction of the time of the double brick home.
Just to clarify, applications have opened from today
I'll come back to you about when applications opened. Yeah.
and they close at the end of December. Why only?
The first part of the application process is the grants. That's a reasonable time. The sector is ready. We've been working with the peak bodies, HIF, with the MBA, and with a number of manufacturers. So they're ready and they're prepared for this to open.
Do you think that local councils will be willing to change zoning regulations to allow more accommodation like this to pop up on R40, R60?
Well, I think certainly the Minister for Planning has done everything that he can to make sure that local councils have all of the necessary arrangements in place and putting in place the necessary arrangements to improve the ability for people to build houses. But ultimately, we also need the community to be able to accept that we are going to have to increase density in our metropolitan area. We're going to have to provide more apartments, more townhouses. If we don't want our children to be living 40 kilometres out of the metropolitan area, we do need to be able to increase density, and that is something that the community needs to accept. We also want people who are ageing, who are living in big houses on big blocks. They want to stay in the same suburb, and those suburbs need apartments, they need higher density.
Just with your decarbonisation hat on, can I get your reaction to Basil Zempilas walking away from questions about his current position on net zero yesterday?
Oh, well, it's just an abject failure of leadership from the leader of the opposition. And what we've seen with the federal, Liberal and National parties walking away from net zero is just abandoning common sense. It is abandoning common sense, it's abandoning the science, and it's abandoning the economy. The reality is coal and gas, and coal in particular, is one of the most expensive forms of generation. We know that the least cost mix, we know that the mix that will put downward pressure on energy prices is renewable energy backed by batteries and backed by gas. That is a fact. They are walking away from that, and it's a complete failure of leadership in this space.
You recently suggested that a renewable energy target is needed, but were unclear about should it be legislated? Should it be legislated?
Well, I think what we've done in Western Australia is set a clear policy signal to industry since 2022, which is that we will exit state-owned coal by 2030. That has resulted in hundreds of millions of dollars of investment in wind farms, in solar, in long-duration battery storage. And we have a credible pathway to do that. There are a range of things that we're looking at in government. No decision has been made. We had legislation before the Parliament in the last term of government which had emissions targets. We're looking at that, but we're also looking at what else might be on the table to encourage renewable investment across the Swiss and across the state, and make sure that we're also supporting our heavy industry, importantly across the Pilbara, to decarbonise and reduce their emissions.
So when will a decision be made on it?
I'm not going to be tied to any particular time frame. We're working through diligently to make sure that anything that we do increases jobs and increases investment and secures good, green, sustainable jobs into the future.
Is it a bit of a shame that factual arguments, in fact facts about renewable energy and so on and so forth, has been mixed up with the difference of ideology? And when something is good for the country, it's clearly factual. The other side saying, yeah, no, it doesn't really matter.
What we've seen from the Liberal and National parties is, in response to their terrible electoral results, is to become more extreme. Is to actually become more extreme and lurch further away from common sense. The vast majority of Australians and West Australians expect action on climate change. They support getting to net zero by 2050. They want a credible pathway, and they want to make sure that the government is investing in new industries that will develop out of that trajectory. And that's what the Premier's vision is, with Western Australia becoming a renewable energy powerhouse and building our manufacturing base on that renewable energy. That is the vision that this government has, and that is the vision that was unanimously endorsed by the community in March this year.
Okay.
Can I just ask your thoughts on parliamentary standards currently? Apparently there was an incident in the Assembly last night. Lachlan Hunter, who you've expressed frustration with, called Jess Stokowski a stupid minister.
Look, I've made no secret that I think the behaviour of the opposition in our House has been appalling, and they've been interjecting constantly. As I said, I've been in Parliament now over 16 years. May surprise you, I look so young, but over 16 years. So I've been in Parliament over 16 years. When I was in opposition, if I interjected on the then Premier, I was called to order immediately. In particular, if I interjected on senior ministers, I was called to order. So I think some of their behaviour has been appalling, and of course we all make mistakes too, and of course our sides also made some very, very bad mistakes. But this is my experience through being in Parliament now for over 16 years and seeing what's transpired, is some people just don't respect the standards of the Parliament and definitely don't respect the Speaker or acting Speakers in the place.
As bad mistakes go on your side, I mean, calling someone Führer has got to be among the worst.
Yeah, it's one of the worst, and that was completely unacceptable. And the member involved apologised as soon as she could. It was completely unacceptable.
It wasn't as soon as she could. I mean, she apologised 2 hours later after questions from the media.
As I understand, they were seeking permission of when she could stand up and make that apology.
Just on regional school buses, the opposition is accusing you of dismantling the school buses network in regional areas. What's your response?
That's completely false. We've actually been the government that's increased the conveyance allowance, for example. So we were the first government to increase the conveyance allowance, which means those that don't have access or don't use a particular bus have now got to increase conveyance allowance for their children. In relation to school buses, we participated, the Labor Party, in a review together with the opposition on the school bus service contracts. We're implementing many of those measures, and that includes providing greater certainty. There are some instances, and this has always happened over time, where as a result of changing numbers, and sometimes it's just as children grow from the primary schools to the high schools, that some services are amalgamated. That happens across the state. It happens in the Transperth sector. It happens in regional WA. Now, there are evergreen contracts, and they were granted by a government a number of years ago, the previous government, And as a result, when we have to amalgamate those services, it is more challenging because there were expectations, but we cannot just have buses where we have a small number of children. As I said, the amalgamation of services has been something that's happened on both sides, under both parliaments, under both sides of government over many years.
What's the current status on the school bus contract for Condinan and Una Primary School? It's coming on 12 months since those extensions were announced. Will they continue?
So in relation to Condinan, that trial, I'm just going to grab my notes, has been extended for another 12 months. I had my notes. On the Condinan, that trial has been extended for another 12 months because of the significant uptake in relation to the bus service, in relation to, was it Una that you mentioned? Yeah, as I understand, that will be an amalgamated bus service.
Minister, just your reaction to the EPA's determination not to conduct further assessment on the proposed impact of upgraded ferry terminals at 3 locations in Perth. Do you stand by that determination?
Absolutely. And as part of our multi-criteria analysis, and one of the reasons we chose the sites we did, is we actually assessed environmental impact. So when we actually determined the sites, and as I said, we went through a multi-criteria analysis which looked at proximity to high usage, i.e. Walkability to key points. It had potential conflict or with other water users, and another key aspect was environmental. Now, in relation to the alternate site that's been put forward, that had very, very significant environmental concerns in relation to both on the land side and also the maritime side. So as a result, one of the reasons we chose the point, it was because it was a very good environmental outcome. One of the reasons we chose the longer jetty was because it facilitated more water use, and also it reduced the need for dredging. So we did all that, and that was why we chose those sites. So if we'd chosen the other site, I'd say there would have been far more environmental issues that were raised.
Of the 300 public submissions that were received, more than 90% wanted further assessment. Do you have any concerns that this determination goes against public opinion?
Well, I think if you were to gauge public opinion about an expanded ferry system, I'd say overwhelmingly people believe that we should have more ferries on the water. And I think if you look at what happens in other states where you can have public transport ferry service, private water use and recreational water use, they can coexist. So I'm really confident with what our plan is. And as I said, one of the reasons we chose the site is because we did a multi-criteria analysis. And as part of that assessment, we looked at impacts on both land side, environmental impacts, and also marine side. It's one of the reasons we chose this site, because the other site that's been proposed has far more significant environmental impacts.
So you're not concerned that this determination doesn't undermine public confidence? There's 270 odd submissions or people that have made them that now feel like they've been ignored. What's the point of making a submission if it's not going to get acknowledged?
Well, people make submissions on a whole range of different issues, but as I said, one of the reasons we chose the site is because it had its least environmental impact. I mean, that's why we did the work and chose that site. As I said, we chose it for a number of other reasons: the ability for watercraft and ferries to coexist, the ability for people to actually get off a ferry and be able to walk to the university, all of those other reasons. So we have a very strong environmental process. But just because there's an orchestrated campaign, it doesn't mean that that type of lobbying should actually avoid the facts. And let's deal with the facts, because that's what we've got on the table.
The Greens have accused the government of altering the Deloitte gas report to make messaging look better. Is the government denying facts?
Absolutely not. Again, we've been very transparent in the work we've been doing in relation to the decarbonisation pathway, and we'll continue to do that.
A statement yesterday said the Deloitte report was commissioned for Cabinet and was drafted and revised independent of government, so the government had no say about the changing of headlines, removing of graphs.
Not that look, I'm not across all the details, but we stand by the work we've been doing, both commissioning independent experts and also the work within government. We're very, very clear and transparent on our approach to the decarbonisation. But look, on this front, it would be amiss to say the chaos and the dysfunction the Liberal Party are in currently. And I think it's up to, as the Minister outlined, Basil Zemplis to make it clear. Does he support the federal government, the federal party stance, or does he still believe ditching net zero? You'd have to be a mug.
There were some significant differences, though, to the leaked report and the one that was tabled in Parliament. So, under your understanding, the government have had no role in the changes that Deloitte made to that report?
Not that I know of, but I may ask the Minister to provide some further comments at the end, if you want.
Roger Cook said on Sunday he wants his ministers to be ambitious. But does him declaring he'll be leader in 2029 mean you've run out of time to become Premier?
I've got a lot of ambition. I want the Dockers to win a grand final. I want my kids to win their six-a-side finals. Look, the Premier's doing a great job. He's doing a great job. We were just elected 6 months ago. Incredible election victory. He has a very united team, and I think we all like working and delivering. I think my past is about getting on with the job and delivering. I do it every day and look forward to continue doing it.
What's your future then, though, if you've gone as high as you can go?
I don't think too far into the future. I'm a bit of a fatalist. So each day I just look at what I need to do and get it done. That's how I think. Because my view in politics is that I've seen a lot of different people disappear earlier than they should have. And my view is you've got to focus on the day-to-day, wake up, do your job, get your signing done, which is always a big one. Get your signing done, keep up with the paperwork, but continue to drive the public sector to deliver outcomes for Western Australians.
There has been, a lot of talk pitting yourself and Minister Sanderson against each other as the likely future leaders. Is that speculation dead now?
As I said, I always expected the Premier to go to 2029. I mean, he just won an election, as I said, just over 6 months ago. An incredible election victory, a united team. We've all got new jobs, doing things and delivering incredible projects. We've got a huge agenda, and as Treasurer I can say it's a huge agenda. So whether it comes to decarbonisation, whether it comes to local manufacturing, whether it comes to housing, whether it comes to continually drive interesting projects like the Matilda Bay or the ferry system. There's incredible projects, an incredible agenda, and every day I feel very lucky that I'm a minister of a government that's achieving so much.
What about 2030 then?
Like I said, I'm worrying about organising myself for tonight and tomorrow, let alone 2030.
Why is Dion Barber being dragged through courts when points can be clarified in legislation?
As I said, we've said again, what Dion Barber experienced was just terrible, and our thoughts are with him in what he has had to endure over many, many years. In relation to the advice we got, all the legal advice was that this pathway was the best pathway. The other point I'll make is that over $110 million has been paid out in settlements. Hundreds of people have already settled in relation to these issues, and there's still a lot of people in the system. So the clarification is to give confidence to people who are still in the system and to make sure they don't have a more difficult process in the future.
Isn't the clarification of Labor an attempt to reduce liability in the future and stop other people receiving payouts like Dion Barber?
Well, as I said, we've already settled hundreds of people.
Yeah, but this is about the future.
Yeah, but under the existing rules. So $110 million has been paid out. And there are currently hundreds going through the process of both settlement and potentially the court process. So this is about clarifying to make sure people may want to settle, and they may not want to go through a court process. So as a result, we need to make sure the rules are very clear to allow them to settle, just like over hundreds have already settled, and making sure that the process is clear. And so those that want to come forward actually can do, and they have a very, very clear process.
Are all the backbenchers happy with the appeal?
As I said, this is a position of government, and as I said, this is all the advice that was given to us to undertake this path. The $2.8 million has been paid through to Mr. Barber, or to his legal firm. And so we protected the 2.8 million, but this is also making sure that all those other hundreds who are waiting to go through either the court process or the settlement process, that there's clarity and making sure that they can access their funds as soon as possible.
As Minister in charge who oversees the Insurance Commission, you could overrule that advice. Why not tell the Insurance Commission to drop that?
Because we work as a government and as a cabinet, and so I have to also, I can't just act unilaterally, and I have to get the advice of all the legal teams across government, and that's what's happened.
So did this go to cabinet?
As I said, this is a position of government. We've had, and we don't disclose what's in or out of cabinet, but this is a decision of government.
You said then that you're standing by this appeal, but you also at the start acknowledged the pain and everything that Dion Barban's gone through, including the initial court process. Yesterday in question time, the Premier wouldn't really say whether he would apologise to Dion. Is that something the government's considering? Standing by that you're wanting to launch this appeal for clarity, but still apologising and acknowledging how distressing it must be for him?
Well, I also acknowledge, absolutely acknowledge the distress.
But an apology to him?
That on behalf of government, yes, I apologise for all the distress that he ever experienced as a part of a government system and institution. But there's hundreds of people who are also going through that process. And if we don't clarify, what will happen is people may have to go through a court process when they want to be going through a settlement process. So this is also about making sure that we have a system that's very clear. As I said, over $110 million has been paid to victims of horrific abuse. So 110 million has already been paid to hundreds of people. And again, there are a lot of people in the system, and we need to make sure we make it, well, I don't think it's smooth. I don't think it'll be easy for anyone to go through any process after what they've experienced, but making sure that those who are still in the system, who are seeking compensation or going through these processes, that the law is clear to make it as quick as possible for them to also receive compensation.
Sorry, I don't mean to go on. I just want to clarify so I don't misrepresent. Are you apologising to them for this appeal, despite all those reasons, or just for what it's
Well, on behalf of government, I think we apologise to all victims. In relation to the appeal, I apologise if he is again experiencing hurt, but it's something that government has to do.
Sorry, did Minister Sanderson want to comment on the Deloitte report?
Sure.
Do you have a specific question?
Are you aware of, at any point, the government had seen any of the different drafts of the Deloitte gas report and asked them to change headlines or remove graphs, or was that done by Deloitte independently?
Look, not to my knowledge, no. And this is Deloitte's report. From what I understand, it's a standard process to have various working drafts, but ultimately any changes made were by Deloitte's.
Who would know then? If you're not aware, who would have requested changes if they did happen, or who would know?
Well, Deloitte's will go through a process of engaging with departments and working through a fact-checking process with them. But it did not come to executive government for particular changes. But what the report does importantly outline is that exporting gas to our trading partners has an important role to play in supporting them to decarbonise going into the future. Gas still remains the only technology available, the lower carbon option to firm renewable energy. It still remains the case. Now, we're working to support new technology like hydrogen to replace that gas into the future. But whilst the technology is where it is, countries like Japan and South Korea need access to West Australians' gas exports to get off coal and to enable to increase their renewable footprint. That's the role that West Australia will play going forward.
One new one from Mr Sanderson. Have you had discussions with Alana McTiernan on behalf of InfraBuild about the Made in WA transmission?
I've met with a range of people, including InfraBuild. In fact, I held a forum with local steel manufacturers with the department a number of months ago, and intend to make that actually a regular process. And InfraBuild was one of a number of manufacturers at the table, including Civmec and other West Australians.
Including Alana McTiernan?
Alana McTiernan, I have to check. I don't think Alana McTiernan was present at that forum, but I'll come back to you on that.
Have you had discussions with Alana about the green steel policy?
No, I have not had discussions with Alana about the green steel policy, but I have met with InfraBuild. We've been to their site. We invited all of you to come with us for the budget announcement, and we've been to a range of sites across Western Australia, including CivMec and including other manufacturers, rolling engineering and sites down in the southwest. What we're doing is finding out what capability exists. That's what we're doing at the moment. So it's a market sounding exercise in people's ability to deliver the next phase of civil infrastructure for the West Australian government, which is largely energy based infrastructure. So that's what those forums are intended, is to understand exactly what exists now and what we need to do to support and uplift in that. And InfraBuild are one of a number of those manufacturers, and they've played an important part in the delivery of Metronet and delivering local content and local jobs for our transport network.
Do they use WA iron ore?
They import steel. So currently, all of our steel is imported. And that is partly the driving motivation for recycled steel, supporting recycled steel into rebar, but also supporting green iron in Western Australia. So obviously we export all of our iron ore. We do not process it in Western Australia. That gets exported for processing largely to China. The green iron ambition, if you like, or plan, is that we actually improve the downstream processing opportunities for that iron ore in the Pilbara and the Midwest in particular. And we use renewable energy to make those green iron briquettes, and then they get exported out to China or South Korea or our other trading partners. That will reduce the emissions in that steel supply chain by about 9%. That's a significant reduction in emissions. Now then, there's separately to that, there's recycled steel into green steel. Now we currently export all of our scrap metal overseas. We do not recycle it here in Western Australia. Now we've got a lot of oil and gas platforms that will be required to be decommissioned in the next few years, rail lines, used cars, written off cars. My daughter wrote her car off recently. That'll probably end up on the scrap heap as well. So all of those currently get exported overseas. We have an opportunity here in Western Australia to create jobs here and actually recycle that scrap steel into green steel. And that is the work that we're doing with an expression of interest process to see who's out there, what the capability is, and how we can help lift that sector and deliver more jobs.
What's the timeline you see on green steel in WA then? Because, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, we can't recycle scrap steel here yet until that arc furnace is built down in Collie, or are there other ways?
Well, the arc furnace is key. So there are a couple of projects that are in various stages of development. Now, what we're saying with this expression of interest is that we want to understand what the capability is out there and how can we improve the recycling of steel in Western Australia in government projects by sending a procurement signal.
But timeline roughly on
Probably 5 years for green steel. For green iron, that's a longer prospect, and that's the work that we're doing, particularly across the Pilbara and the Midwest, to make sure that there are a number of very potential projects, but that we can get our iron ore that we are mining very successfully and actually process that here using the best solar and wind in the world. We have the best solar and wind in the world. We are one of the best places in the world to actually be able to manufacture this, and that's the work that we're doing around green iron.
Can it still be called green iron if it's made using methane?
That's a good question. Well, biofuels are key to delivering that green iron. Our aim is actually to deliver green iron with renewable energy, with wind and solar.
So green hydrogen will be the preference?
Well, yeah, green hydrogen is going to be absolutely part of that mix. Before we get to green hydrogen, we'll probably get to green ammonia to support shipping. Green hydrogen is a prospective technology. It still needs work. It's technically possible to do, but still very costly. The cheapest form of energy generation is renewable energy, and that's the work that we're doing across the Pilbara.
Okay.
All
Thanks,
right.
Charles.
Thank you.
Can I just grab the Deputy Premier just quickly? The Greens are out this morning on post and boast clause. They say the Standing Committee report proves that the bill isn't fit for purpose as it stands. They see the options as to rewrite it or scrap it.
No, our advice is that the bill is fit for purpose, and we'll make sure that there's no unintended consequences of the bill. So this is about making sure that we protect the wider community in relation to people undertaking very bad behaviour then posting it. And what we've seen is that has encouraged copycat behaviour. So this is all about making the community safer, and our advice is that the bill wouldn't deliver the unintended consequences.
The Greens have said that they wrote to you about a number of amendments and that you refused to kind of work with them. Why wouldn't you work collaboratively?
To me about
the government.
Sorry. Look, I'll have to follow that up, but again, we take our own legal advice and our advice is very strong.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Is your daughter okay? With the car accident?